Yo, 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 what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Um, this question was asked, and by the way, I'm Terrell, Hall of Fame, D-Line, TBKC, and all that sweet, beautiful, wonderful shit. But this question was asked, right? And it was asked about how do we, explain certain abnormalities in the breed that we're seeing that are more persistent. And it's much of the same. These particular abnormalities that we talked about are structural. As we talked about the elongated backs. And more presently, lately, people have been talking about the shorter forearms on some of the dogs. It's much of the same, people. It's not an easy explanation about it. You would need a scientist to really break down what's causing it. But oftentimes, for lack of a better word, this is a mutation, of many sorts. And right now, I'm telling you, there's nothing scientific about what I'm saying. But what explanation I'm going to give you is somewhat scientific from my little bit of education that I have. The elongated back, right? We're seeing more and more dogs get elongated backs. Now, our body's genetics change according to situations, according to stress, according to, even environmental. And I'm not talking about, your body currently, but I'm talking about from generation to generation. It's been known, if you look into the giraffes once upon a time had shorter necks. Their necks extended because their food was higher, amazingly enough, huh? And many other adaptations that even now, it's this weird phenomenon going on with elephants. Crazy is that some elephants are being born without tusks, and many would equate that to the fact that they're becoming more and more extinct because people are killing them for their tusks. Now, I have no idea how that worked, but I've just seen a whole thing about it where they're talking about a lot of elephants now are being born without the tusk. God is God, you know what I mean? But we've seen many of adaptations from animals one way or the other, whether they got bigger, whether they got smaller, whether they got faster, whether their cardio systems changed, whether their abilities to do certain things. This is all throughout animal history. Well, in the American bully, this is something that you would want to think about. Now, in relevance to the shorter forearms that people are seeing, where the dogs look very, very stubby, and you have to remember that this breed has become a dwarfism breed. Even when you talk about the extreme dogs, a lot of the dogs that were added into the dogs to make these more extreme dogs have heavy dwarfism traits, whether it's the French bulldog. A lot of the English bulldogs have dwarfism traits where you see that their arms are, they have the shorter forearms at times. This is an adaptation that we have seen, happen. Now, also amongst the thing is the heavy amount of stress on the forearms. We have to understand that the longer a limb is, the more of a likelihood of a fracture or a break when there's abnormal amount of stress put on these limbs. In other animals, we have seen it to where think about a turtle, right? A turtle is very wide. Well, if you look at their limbs, they're very, very short. You know what I mean? It's a ton of spread there. So the only way that they can properly carry this without adding even more stress is that, they're very, very short there in the limbs. So we are starting to see that with the bullies, that I guess you would start calling them turtle bullies or something. But in a lot of animals, you see that if the body is very, very wide, the limbs shorten because it gives it a stronger base. You know what I mean? So that's a theory of mine that I can see happening with the forearms. But also, like I say, the dwarfism characteristics are there, so it's a twofold thing that the adaptation. Also, it's an adaptation that comes along with dwarfism, as with dwarfism the body gets shorter, more compact, the bones tend to get thicker. That's that. Now with the elongated back, it's a dimensional thing. And what I mean by that is think about this. If the dog was built super wide in the front, right? But what we all like to have happen is super short in the back. What kind of balance would that give the dog? You're very, very wide up here, but in the back, you have nothing there. So you're sort of just tipping backwards. Well, I think because of the way that we've bred these dogs to continuously expand in the front, it has triggered genetics to say you will get better balance. And you have to remember, our genetics don't adapt for aesthetics. They adapt for functionality. So now that you are breeding these dogs to be extremely wide, wider than they should be by most standards, it elongates the back now to compensate for the fact that, you know, you're way too wide in the front. You don't have a great center of gravity in the front anymore. You're spread very, very wide. So now think of it like a tripod, exactly like a tripod. You know, if you have a tripod and you put the first two legs outwards like this, that third one that is in the back, the way that you get a good, you know what I'm saying, a good base on it is you elongate it. You make it longer to get, you know, to get there. Now, of course, you know, all spaces are going to be pretty much evenly based. Well, it's similar to what we're seeing in bullies now. We had this idea that we could actually make the dogs, excuse me for playing with this hat so much, but we could actually make the dogs wide in the front and keep them short in the back. That doesn't work balance-wise. So genetics now has triggered to make the dogs very, very long in the back too, and it's just to compensate for what you're doing to the front end. The dog has to have balance. It has to have the ability to move. Our genetics adapt, as I was saying, to functionality, not to what we want the looks to be all the time. And with this, you're going to see longer backs, and sometimes the genetics can overcompensate for different things. You know what I mean? And with the way we are overcompensating that we want these gigantic, super big, wide chests, the genetics will compensate to make it longer. You're not going to make a dog that's 2 feet wide and only a foot long. That's not going to happen. The genetics are going to make the dog long enough that it can function. And you're going to see, you know, and just like with the shorter forearms, you want a shorter base because it allows less stress. If you make the dog's legs taller with that super wide chest, it is actually creating a center of stress right in the middle of the chest. And that's why, you know, I could see the forearm shortening down because truly, I mean, it's all physics at the same time. You know, a shorter wide table is more sturdier than a very wide table that's up in the air because gravity is pulling harder in the center the higher it gets. If you make it shorter, a low center of gravity, you know what I'm saying, makes it a lot sturdier. These things will continue to happen if we're not breeding aesthetically and we're not making the dogs the way that they're supposed to be with great symmetry. If we can't do that, you're going to see more and more abnormalities. You're going to see more and more weird things start to happen with the dogs. You're going to see more and more of the feet starting to spread out. It's a balance thing. It's a grip thing. The feet will spread. A lot of different things will happen to these dogs if we don't get back to the basics of making a dog structurally sound from every angle. This is the way that animals are built. This is the way our dogs are built. They are built and designed, and I will use that word designed to be the way they are for a reason. As we play with the work that is put there, you know, the basic foundation of the way a canine is supposed to be built, as you play with that, you'll start to see that it'll play back with you. And like I say, that's not, you know, some of that is science, but this is also my theory, so it's not in a book. I'm not claiming that anybody else says it, but there are some studies that show the way the body changes itself to adapt to other changes that are going on, you know, throughout the generations of genetics. Those who are in my mentorship program have heard me talk about the Belgian cows and the way that because their double muscle gene has made them so massively dense and heavy with all that muscle that the bones no longer grow straight up and down. They actually twist to make a stronger bone, like a candy cane. It twists, and it's actually making a stronger bone because it makes it more dense as it twists. These are all things that happen, but Hopefully that helped y'all out with the why. I try to answer every question with some kind of little bit of knowledge, and that's my theory on that. So once again, I'm not saying it's all factual or whatever, but I do think if you study this thing, you will find out that it is very, very sound as far as the theory goes. Until next time, y'all, God bless y'all. Much love. Peace.